It's the 29th of May. The Media Center Ukraine is working. My name is Svetlana Chiporenko. We'll be talking today about the mobilization, speed, rates, and work on demobilization mechanisms. We have Fedir Venislavskyi, MP, member of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on National Security, Defense, and Intelligence. Hello, Fedir. Hello. So yesterday, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the war will go on for at least a year. So mobilization will go on at least for a year, at least under such active stage. Which are the speeds as of now? Which is the rates of now? And do they satisfy the needs? The figures of mobilization are the information which has limited access, so I cannot tell you about anything in particular. I will tell you approximately that after the law is adopted, which improves the issues of mobilization, there was a certain, I would say, increase of the number of mobilized or drafted people. Then it went down. So as of now, it is at the same level, which provides the, in fact, irreversible losses coverage, which we have in the security and defense sector in the armed forces of Ukraine. Objectively, I would say the war is ongoing for almost 3.5 years. People are definitely tired, so that we could have more opportunities, we would like the speed of mobilization to be higher, but the ones which we have as of today, they are rather sufficient to go on, to keep on, and to repulse the enemy at the level how we do that now. We can see a very sad tendency in the society when the young people who are under 18 are going abroad for the studies. Their parents are taking them to the schools and colleges abroad, to the educational institutions. This is our future mobilization resource. Do the authorities have the ideas? What can we do with this sad tendency, and how can we reverse this process? This issue is discussed among the MPs of Ukraine. It is also discussed in our committee. We have a certain, I would say, consensus deal with the different groups or factions in the parliament that this issue would soon be solved or at least voted for, because we shouldn't lose our youth which is going abroad and then it's not able to come back, because 18 to 60 years old we've introduced the restrictions because of the martial law, and they are acting for the males who cannot live abroad. So there is an idea that up to 24 years old, the citizens of Ukraine shouldn't be limited into their in their travels, because if the young Ukrainians are going abroad, they should have an opportunity to go back and to see their relatives, and wouldn't be obliged to stay abroad, but to support the connection with Ukraine. It's a very sensitive issue, because first of all, it's hard to define this limit when the young person can leave or cannot leave. But we are discussing this issue, and undoubtedly it is painful. We need to solve it. The understanding about the necessity to solve this issue exists, so I think that in the short-term perspective in the parliament there will be certain legislative initiatives which will be able to vote for, so that this situation could be corrected. As for mobilization of Ukrainian students, will anything change for them since the 1st of June? Not a single legislative novelty about the mobilization of the citizens of Ukraine who are now in the education process do not exist, but still, since 2022, the issue how the abuse shouldn't be taking place and the use of opportunity to study as a quasi-reason for the, in fact, delay is discussed. I wouldn't say that it is the secret that the number of students 25, 30 plus has increased in geometric progression. The number of fellow doctors and doctors also has increased times and times. Undoubtedly, it is connected with the war, with the wish of people to avoid mobilization. There are certain ideas and initiatives from the Initiative of Education and Science to make such abuse impossible. But let me emphasize again, any legislative acts which could be considered or could be even registered in the parliament about this issue in the short-term perspective which could be adopted, they do not exist. So there are no changes for those citizens of Ukraine who are the students of the higher educational institutions, who are having a consistent education, not just getting the secondary level after the high one. The registration of the people liable for military service is working. How is it working? The introduction of the e-cabinet of the conscript or a reserve soldier was a response to the renation or destroying of the system of military registration, which used to be in Ukraine. The heads of the Ministry of Defense during the Yanukovych cadency, who were not patriots of Ukraine, they did everything possible to destroy the whole system of mobilization, getting ready to the war. And during the first days of the war, we really faced a huge issue that the older paperback registration was substantially destroyed. We didn't have the new one, so we needed to quickly recover. But after the legislative amendments were adopted, especially after we introduced the opportunity to get through the military registration through e-communications, this system is working. As of today, it's working rather efficiently. So we have, I cannot tell you the exact figures because it's limited access information, but still the vast majority of digitalized information is already used by the commissariats, and also the citizens are using the e-cabinets actively. So this is the project which was successfully implemented in the very short periods of time. It is showing its efficiency. It is working, and the services which are used by the people liable for military service, the conscripts, it all shows the increase tendency. Any complaints through electronic communications are used by the military, and it shows a nice tendency that in a year or two we'll totally get rid of the paperback carriers. Those will be just electronic ones, and it will be an efficient way so that the state could understand how many citizens can be drafted and what's the military registration, the state of current health. So it will be in the e-register. We adopted several laws to save these databases to avoid any leakages so that they could be protected. We improved this process, but this process is dynamic, and I think that it's a very nice outcome from the introduction of the e-documents, military documents. I'd like to talk about the military commission, which was prolonged. What's the number of people who went through the military medical commission? As of today, the citizens of Ukraine who used to be limitedly fit during the military time or during the martial law, and we introduced a different system, fit or non-fit, they need to get through an additional or repetitive commission. More than a half of them have already had this commission. It's a very interesting tendency on how, because of the repetitive commission, medical commission, what's the proportion of those who are considered to be fit or not fit for the military service? In fact, all of them, 99%, are created eligible or fit for the military service, which witnesses that the opportunity to be limitedly fit was a kind of abuse opportunity or the loophole, and it was used by the people who were liable for military service because people wouldn't like to be liable. So 50% who had the commission again are acknowledged as the ones who are liable for military service without any restrictions, and about half of them are liable for military service with certain limitations in the rare units, in the provision units. But again, almost everyone is liable for military service, and there are no complaints that there have been any violations of the reasons for liability for military service or being fit or unfit. The complaints are not that numerous. So we have the situation then objectively where people who had the status have all become liable or fit. And the most painful topic, demobilization. For about 3 years, the military are waiting for the legislative settlement of this process. What's the current situation? Do we develop any certain mechanisms, and when do we await for any decisions or solutions? I think we should be frank. The issue of demobilization undoubtedly is really painful for our military, for their family members, especially for those who are there voluntarily since the first days of the war. But under the conditions of the real situation which we have now, when Russia is constantly increasing their mobilization resource, it is doing everything with their armed forces, conscripting men or providing motivational measures with a bigger number of people, when even the number of occupation troops which are on the territories which are temporarily occupied is increasing for about 15–20% in comparison with the last year, it is early to say that soon we'll adopt the law on demobilization or on the retirement, as it is the right thing to say for certain categories of people. I would say we shouldn't be too optimistic about that. I think it would hardly take place soon. The alternative ways is what we have already mentioned for multiple times with the representatives of the General Staff and the Ministry of Defense, the management of the Ministry of Defense, to introduce additional holiday leaves or some rotation measures. And also the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, General Syrsky, has introduced them and is going on with them to get those who are taking part in the active combats to have some days off. But I am not optimistic about the law on this retirement. There is a question. Please, you need a mic for that? No, you need a mic, in fact. Thank you. Anna Żelezniak, Suspilne. There was an information that the commander of the battalion of 47th Mechanized Brigade, Alexander Shershin, who accused the commandment and the losses at Kursk direction, will be, in fact, invited to the committee of an SDC. When will this meeting take place? Or maybe the General Staff or Shershin provided any data for the discussion. What will be the objective, which issues will be discussed there? As of now, any initiatives which could be registered as a certain invitation to the committee for these or those military, or including the one which you just mentioned, do not exist. Or at least I don't have information about that. We did not invite any soldier so that he could provide any explanations. I cannot comment on that. I heard about that. That was the initiative of my colleagues. But at the meeting of the committee, it was not discussed. They did not offer that for the discussion. They were just expressing that in the public space. But just Alexander Fedyenko said that he introduced such a proposal to the committee. Do you know about that? Let me emphasize, I never heard such proposals about the invitation to the committee. I didn't hear about that. Thank you. Thank you, Fedir. Let me remind you that we were talking about the speed of mobilization and the work on the mechanism of demobilization. And Media Center Ukraine will go on at about 1 p.m. We'll be speaking about the tribunal for Putin and when he will face trial. Stay with us.